Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Stickland, for what purpose?
does the gentleman yield for a question?
Has another point of order he's raising. Mr. Speaker,
Mr.
members.
Speaker,
Mr. Stickland?
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Stickland?
does the gentleman yield for... Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Stickland?
does the gentleman yield for just a couple of...
35, Mr.
King
Chair
of
recognizes
Parker.
Representative King of Parker.
Move passage.
Question occurs on the pass of House Bill
Speaker.
1235. Mr. Stickland?
I just had a couple of...
I close.
Mr. Speaker,
Stickland, yes, sir.
does the gentleman yield for a question?
Gentlemen, move past.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Stickland?
Mr. Speaker, do you...
Chair recognizes Representative Parker to
Mr.
explain
Speaker.
House Bill 2189. Yes, Mr. Stickland.
Move adoption.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Stickland?
Mr. Speaker, does
Mr. Stickland?
the gentleman yield for...
Representative Stickland, for what purpose?
Does the gentleman yield for a question? Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Stickland?
parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry. You intend to finish and speak for the entire 10 minutes?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Move passage,
Mr.
Representative
Speaker.
Stickland, for what purpose, sir?
Parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your
Am I
inquiry.
required to come down there, or can we have the discussion from the microphone for the benefit of the public who is interested in this issue?
Of the
Parliamentary
arguments
inquiry.
required. Please state your inquiry.
How-
The House
and
is
what if I
is-
disagree with what you have decided single-handedly
Mr.
without
Stickland.
discussion or debate?
What was that? That's not a parliamentary inquiry. Would you recognize me for a motion to suspend all necessary rules to bring up HB 195 to the floor right now? I would suggest you come down and discuss that with us.
Dumbass. All right.
70, Mr. Stickland.
Does the gentleman yield for some questions?
Gentlemen yield for questions.
Are we creating a new criminal penalty on the local and consent calendar?
Mr. Stickland, I am so glad that you are bringing this issue up on this bill. Let me tell you why. And may I ask that all remarks be reduced to the journal in writing. Members, let me tell you, remarks yet, Mr. Stickland.
Parliamentary inquiry.
I do not yield the mic for
I understand.
his, just yet.
State your inquiry, Mr. Stickland.
Does the gentleman intend to speak for 10 minutes on this bill?
You know,
He seems rather serious about the bill and will allow him to continue, Mr. Stickland.
I'm glad one of us in this conversation is deemed serious. Now, this
Parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry.
all right,
Mr.
move passage.
Mr. Speaker,
Okay. One question? You have only one question?
Mr. Stickland.
I asked if this created a new criminal penalty, and I don't think that was ever addressed.
Mr. Stickland, can I help you with something?
Does the gentleman yield for a question?
Gentlemen yield.
I yield for a clear and
Gentleman
logical
yields
question.
for a question.
Does this create a new criminal penalty, Representative Sheffield?
Let's see.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry.
Thank you for answering my one question. I believe there's another. Now, parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry.
State your inquiry, please, sir.
What was the first day that members of this body were allowed to pre-file a piece of legislation?
Right after election. Mr. Stickland, it was in November. We'd be more happy to get you the specific date.
I believe that that date was specifically November the 10th. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry, please.
If a bill was pre-filed on the first day that we were able to file a bill and has not yet been referred to committee, what is a member of this body supposed to do about that?
Representative, you might want to visit with the speaker for your specific request.
Parliamentary inquiry.
State please?
In the House rules, is there a specific thing that as members we can do to petition the Speaker who is responsible for referring a bill to committee to activate that process other than filing a piece of legislation?
Mr. Stickland.
Are you aware of a specific reason that House Bill 209 has not been referred to committee when Bill 208 and 210 were both filed on the same day and referred on February 10th of this month, effectively skipping over one specific bill?
I don't specifically know about that bill, sir.
Mr. Stickland, I'd be happy to visit with you about your concerns.
Yes, and thank you for that, sir. Parliamentary inquiry.
Major inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, are you advised why House Bill 209 has specifically been skipped over in the referral process? And it appears that we are now dealing with bills numbering in the 900s.
Mr. Stickland, it's not uncommon. I'd be happy to visit with you about your concerns, sir.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you.